Hello Year 2s, here we are again. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I'm going to carry on with our maths learning and begin today's session. As always, I hope you have your journal with you and your learning partner who's been helping you with your maths. Let's begin. In our Infocus task, we have got a tally chart and a table. Okay, now the tally chart and the table both have representations for the number of books each of these boys have read. So we've got Sam, Charles, Ravi and Elliot. And using this data, using this information, you are going to make a pictogram. Okay, it's got to have obviously the same information, the same data. Okay, so before you go off and do that, I'd like you to look carefully at the table which has used the tally chart information to come up with its final answers. Okay, what do you notice about these numbers, or the total number of books each of these children have read? That's the first thing I'd like you to talk about. Then the second thing is, when you're considering making your pictogram, what value would you give your key or your symbol? Okay, so you've got to think about a symbol. What you're going to use? Are you going to use a spot or a multi-link cube or a box, or what are you going to use as your symbol for your pictogram? And by looking at these totals, what value do you think is a good one to have for your symbol? Okay, what might be a good key, what might be a good value for your key? All right, so those are the two things I'd like you to think about. If you would like to, pause or go back and listen to the questions again and make your pictogram with your learning partner. And when you come back, we're going to look at the pictogram that these boys have made together and look at what they've done. All right, so have a few minutes to work on your pictogram with your learning partner and then come back and we'll look at it together. Thank you. Okay, here we've got a pictogram which shows the number of books each boy read last year. To double check, we've got the same names. Okay, we've not changed any names because those were the boys who we had in the table and the tally chart. Okay, so there's Sam, Charles, Ravi and Elliot. Now the symbol they chose was a book. Okay, a purple book. Each book, the symbol, stands for 10 books. So their key sentence says each book stands for 10 books. So this is the pictogram their pictogram made. So we've just looked at the key. Why is this a good idea? Why is it that when they use 10 books as a value for their key, for their symbol, why is this a good idea? Have a couple of minutes to discuss this with your learning partner. Okay, I'm just going to go back to that first slide a moment. I asked you to look at the values or the totals of their books. Okay, now if you look at these numbers, all of them end in tens, or they're tens numbers. Okay, or the T numbers. Remember how if you work with Mrs. Sweeney, we use our teacups to count up in tens? So each number ends in a T, a TY, okay? And that's why they thought it was a good idea to use 10 as a value for each symbol, because we know that you can count up in our tens to get to the total. Okay, so look carefully again at the key, and in a moment we're going to answer these questions. But before we do that, what times table knowledge would you need to help you today? Okay, think through all the times tables that you know. You are right, it is the 10 times table, okay? It is the 10 times table because in your 10 times table you are counting up in groups of 10. So using that knowledge, I'm going to answer with you a couple of these questions. So let's start with the first one. How many books did Elliot read? So I'm going to go over to Elliot there. There he is. I'm going to count the number of books he's read. Now I'm remembering that key sentence again. One book stands for 10 books. Okay, or one symbol stands for 10 books. So I'm going to count up in my groups of 10. One group of 10, two groups of 10, three groups of 10, four groups of 10, five groups of 10, six groups of 10, seven groups of 10. So 7 groups of 10 makes 70. That's right. So my answer there would be 70 for Elliot. Okay. Then the second question, or question B, says who read the most books last year? Who read the most amount of books last year? Now, just by looking at my pictogram, remember this is why using symbols helps, I can see that Charles has most amount of books. And just because I know the key, I'm going to use my mathematical multiplication knowledge to count up in my groups. So one group of 10, two groups of 10, three groups of 10, four groups of 10, five groups of 10, six groups of 10, seven groups of 10, eight groups of 10. So I know that Charles read the most amount of books because he's got 8 groups of 10, which makes 80. And I'm going to write his name in the box. Okay, so Charles read the most amount of books. What I'd like you to do is, just making sure I've got my capital letter for Charles because he's a proper noun, is answer the rest of these questions. Think carefully again to that first session where Mrs. Sweeney talked about mathematical operations. Are you going to add? Are you going to subtract? What do you need to do? Listen carefully if the question is being read to you by your learning partner. Look at it again. Think it through. Do not rush. Okay, have a few minutes to do that and we can move on. Okay, I have got a reflection challenge. Now, you can do this a bit later on in the day because what Miss Pope and I thought is that you could pause the video or do it now or take this information away and come back to it at some point so you can think about it carefully. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is look at the reflection challenge. It is a pictogram which shows the number of books each boy read last year. So it's the exact same pictogram we just looked at. Now, Ruby here says she read 75 books last year. Now, how would I represent her number of books in the pictogram? How would I show, I mean, I know possibly how to do 70, but how am I going to represent the 5? Okay, so your reflection challenge is to find out and tell me how you're going to represent 5 in your pictogram. And would you mind, please, emailing your answers, if possible, to us, to Miss Pope and I, because we'd love to see how you used your reasoning and your thinking to come up with this solution. All right? Okay, we're going to move on. Here we are with our worksheets. Now today, our key is that the symbol stands for 10 because we're using our multiplication knowledge for the 10 times table, which means we're counting up in groups of 10. Okay, so ask an adult or your learning partner to help you with the questions and read them out to you, of course. So here's your first pictogram, there's your second, and your third, and finally, as always, any home learning or any questions, especially that lovely reflection challenge for you today, please email them to us. Miss Pope and I love to hear from you and love to see your lovely work. Okay, have a fantastic weekend and we'll see you soon. Bye.